go faster into the situation that we all face because we're all highly combustible now. We can be hit with weapon systems and be dustified as human beings. Just as we were seeing many of the communities here in the Tubbs fire here in Northern California where we lost 5,000 homes. Sean, we can be zapped by frequencies and dustified because of the heavy metals.
Hey friends, that was Deb Tavares from StopTheCrime.net, a whistleblower, a truth teller, and a woman who holds knowledge the normies can only dream of. We have breaking news to share in this one as Donald J. Trump turns the water back on in California and Gavin Newsom serves the House of Rothschild. Friends, these are UN Agenda 2030 fires, and here are the facts. Before we start, just a quick word about our sponsor. 2024 was a landmark year for crypto. Bitcoin soared over 125%, crossing the 100K mark. But 2025 could be even bigger, with some analysts predicting that Bitcoin could reach 250,000. President Trump is leading the charge with the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Bill, which aims to purchase 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years. And with institutional investment continuing to rise, the momentum is undeniable. On a daily basis, the ETFs alone are stacking 5 to 10 times the daily global supply of Bitcoin. My Digital Money is at the forefront of this financial revolution. For over 4 years, they've helped investors take advantage of opportunities like these. Their platform is secure, easy to use, and backed by US-based customer service that's ready to answer your questions. Whether you're investing through an IRA or a standard account, My Digital Money makes it simple to get started. Don't miss your chance to build wealth in 2025 and beyond. Visit mydigitalmoney.com today and start your crypto journey. The link is below. Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Sean from SGT Report. Guys, what you're looking at on my screen right now is the news. Donald J. Trump basically told the world as he's sent water back to California. He's ordered California to turn on the water. Gavin Newsom has been reluctant to do so. I call Gavin Newsom the House of Getty, rightly so, because Gavin Newsom takes his marching orders from powers above the Newsom family. Let me tell you, probably the Getty family, maybe Rockefeller and Rothschild. But Trump sent out a tweet on Monday night. Folks, he says, the United States military just entered the great state of California, and under emergency powers, they turned on the water, flowing abundantly from the Pacific Northwest and beyond. The days of putting fake environmental argument over the people are over. Enjoy the water, California. Folks, lots of good news to report. By the way, the state of California is denying that's what happened. They claim that the water pumps were simply offline for maintenance for 3 days. Ladies and gentlemen, truth is coming out whether Gavin Newsom likes it or not. I've got Deb Tavares from StopTheCrime.net on the line. Deb is a longtime activist, the premier activist in this space of stopping United Nations Agenda 2030. She lives in California. She's survived these fires in the past, including the 2017 Tubbs fire. She knows directed energy weapons and the systems meant to keep us all serfs. Deb joins us right now. Deb, how are you? How are you holding up?
Sean, thank you. I am really suffering from trauma because I have watched LA County and areas where I was born and raised and grew up. I was born in Santa Monica. I grew up living in the Pacific Palisades, and then I lived on the top of Big Rock Canyon in Malibu off of the Pacific Coast Highway. And I was evacuated when I was only 11 years old in 1961 by the fires. Now, I really need to ratchet this all up because we can't sit on the delusion of what I just heard being said about shipping water down from Northern California. But that's not the kind of ratcheting I'm really talking about on this disclosure today, other than to say, the movement of water from Canada through Oregon to California, Northern California, and down to Southern California via the methodologies that currently exist. We're talking about from reservoirs and the aqueducts, etc. That was never necessary. This was the water grab originally, what you see in the Chinatown film. We are still manufacturing the illusion that we have to ship water via the methodologies that are currently set up, which are all based on energy, weapons, and withholding of water. We could do what Muammar Gaddafi did by getting to primary water down below the mantle easy and ship water around through wells and plumbing to serve all the people. We would have all the water we need because remember, primary water we're not running out of. We're called the Water Planet. I run the website primarywater.org. So the idea and the illusion of continuing to suggest that we need to move water in larger quantities in the systems that we already have set up is wrong. It's not wrong. It's the way in which certainly we have seen reservoirs and dams used as weapons where they're exploded and taken down. We know that they can heavily poison all the surface water. So all the surface water that's moved around the way it currently is deadly water, period.
Deb, if I could just interject, let's just be real clear here, though, because we like to count the good news and the positives when we see it coming from the Trump administration. Now, Gavin Newsom let the reservoirs run dry. Those reservoirs could have been used to put out the Palisades fires. The fire hydrants were dry. Karen Bass was out of the country when the fires were happening. Karen Bass is standing in the way of people clearing their properties so that they can begin to rebuild. She wants people to get permits, which will take 18 months. Trump was there. He took on Karen Bass specifically and said, a week is too long. Let these people back in to clear up their own properties. And by the way, we only resort to government at all to protect our property and our liberty. What the hell right does Karen Bass have to keep people off their properties and to prevent them from rebuilding? Question number one. Question number two, actually, it's the point I want to make. Trump letting water flow back in to fill those reservoirs is a good thing. Can we not count that as a win?
I will tell you this. The reason that water is sparsely used during the initial fires that are started with microwaves and lasers, which we'll talk about that, is because then we all would have seen earlier on in the hundreds and hundreds of fires presented to us all over the world that microwaves were being used. You do not put out microwave and laser fires with water. We didn't have water here in the Tubbs fire of 2017. The two large holding tanks that were designed to and were required to be built above this very palatial home development were emptied just prior to the fires, they claimed, because of earthquake retrofitting. So now we're hearing that the reservoir at the Palisades had a cover over it, and it had a tear in it, and they wanted to prevent bird droppings from contaminating the water. Well, they put enough contaminants in the water and enough chlorine that bird droppings are not posing the problem, and they don't have covers over all the reservoirs anyway. But I want to move away from the political spin of all of this because it is political spin, and I want to talk more about ratcheting up the circumstances that we are all in, and the fact that we will go over the evidence-based patents on how these fires and other weather weapons are being used on us now. And we have to get into the larger picture here.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. And let me just say, you sent me some pictures. I'll be putting up those pictures as we have this conversation. So I'll turn it all over to you. But I just want to mention the fact, wood posts on fire near the nails and screws while the rest of the wood is unharmed. Evidence of directed energy weapons? Question mark. Audience, I ask you. Beyond that, we have a picture of a Sky News reporter reporting about the California wildfires, quote unquote, while standing in front of trees burning from within. Ladies and gentlemen, the anomalies of these fires in Pacific Palisades, Santa Monica, etc., remind us specifically of what we saw in the Tubbs fires. Not to mention blue vans, blue VW vans, untouched. Blue homes, untouched. Go ahead.
We'll talk about that because we need to. Everyone needs to understand what's really happening. Now, it's very important, and I'm going to lead off with this because you brought this up first, where you're showing the photo I sent you with the guardrail post on fire. With if you enlarge that, you're going to see that cable going through those posts. Okay, that cable is microwaved. It's so hot that it's causing the wood to burn. What you will see when this, well, you will see this because you're going to insert this in our discussion. Those wood posts are on fire like torches. It's because the microwave cable has caused the wood to burn. Now, I will tell you, on many of the fire investigations in Paradise and other fires around Northern California, we witnessed the results of the microwaves heating up the nails that went into wood. We saw where the nails got so hot, it caused the wood to burn. This is the very first time, Sean, we have ever seen the fires in action being burned by the heat in the cables. Now, this is incredibly important because this is what everyone needs to understand. And this is really horrific. And we'll walk into it a little softly, but not so much. We all need to understand that when you are hit with the beamed weapons, we'll give you that information, the patents on these in a moment. But when you are directly hit with lasers and microwaves, and you're in the path of those calibrated, directed hits, you will experience the heat like we're seeing in these cables that are heating up and burning the wood post. We saw that happening all the way on up Paradise on the road. We saw the guardrails where their metal guardrails lagged on to smaller posts, and the guardrails were all lying on the ground because the wooden posts were all burned up. But there was no evidence of fire outside of the perimeter of the burned up wooden post. So here's where we are. I want everyone to think about this. Microwaves are heating up everything structural in all of our buildings. Think about that, and I'm going to list some things. In construction, we use structural framing hardware. We use steel, and we can use hot-dipped galvanized or stainless steel. We use anchor bolts set in cement. We use plate washers and nuts and hold downs and brackets, floor joist hangers, plate straps, nails, structural screws, shear wall straps. We use rafter connections for tying the roof to the building. We use all of these things, and these are all being heated up, and they can burn your house down by using the microwaves against the very building materials that all of our homes and structures are built with. Think about that. That's why we saw metal I-beams sagging in many of the areas in Lahaina. Certainly what we saw here in many of the aftermaths of fires here. But worse, I've just given you a list of how they will destroy all housing, all structures. And now I want you to think about this. We as human beings are full of heavy metals. Full of heavy metals. You'll hear many people talk about the enormity of the metals in our bodies. Now we have to realize that we're going to be torched because we have heavy metals in our bodies, and they're using microwaves and 5G and other methodologies of frequencies to cook us from within.
You know what else pops into my head as you tell us that, Deb? I want to ask you about smart meters. Just bookmark that, bring it up at your convenience. But smart meters on the homes in Pacific Palisades versus homes that didn't have smart meters. By the way, the company that provides energy to our home, XL Energy in Minnesota, they, against our will, installed a smart meter. This is just a couple of months ago. My wife caught the guy. I ran out there and read him the Riot Act and made him take it off our house. We had already opted out of that program several times, once in writing, and they put it on our house anyway. But anyway, smart meters on our house, it reminds me of people who took the vax, the bioweapon masquerading as a vaccine, and now they have all these smart nanobots floating around their bodies. Go ahead, Deb.
Well, absolutely. And we fought to get the opt-out in California back at about 2008 and to opt out of the wireless electric smart meters. California is one of the few states that has the ability to opt out. Rothschild came in and worked with Vanderbilt Psych Department, Vanderbilt University, to figure out how to psyops those of us that were protesting against that. In fact, Sean, I was arrested on 1/11 of 2011 out of sheer frustration of the local Rothschild globalist papers never talking about the deployment of the meters. And I just at that time, honestly, I was so naive. I couldn't understand why they weren't mentioning anything about the deployment of these meters. So my arrest ended up going worldwide. I'm a grandmother. I'm conservative looking. I was not fitting the description of the protesters that they were saying were opposing the deployment of the meters. And I was interviewed by the New York Times and the San Francisco Chronicle. And then I was contacted by the San Francisco Chronicle asking me how it felt that I was being named in Pacific Gas and Electric documents. Being named. I will say no more.
Let me interject again. I just learned, I did not know this, and I may have learned this through a video you produced, but just recently I learned that PG&E is not only a Rothschild Rockefeller owned company, it has been so since the turn of the century. And I'm not talking about the year 2000. I'm talking about 1900. These families have been in control of PG&E, this fire-causing, malevolent company, in my view, for over 100 years, Deb.
Absolutely. In fact, when I discovered that and put that out over the air, it was when I was at a Pacific Gas and Electric annual shareholders meeting years ago, and they introduced Rothschild as being in attendance. I didn't know which person it was that they were alluding to, but when I heard that, I immediately knew, and I was literally blowing the whistle on that. In those days, I could simply type in Pacific Gas and Electric and Rothschild, and it showed the CEO and the control of Pacific Gas and Electric. So we've known this for years now, and it's one of the reasons why in those photographs you talked about where blue and white are not being burned, because we need to understand they're using blue lasers. And I'll talk about that patent here in a moment. But it's important to understand that the blue lasers reflect off of the color blue. And they also reflect off of white, the color white. And that's why in many of the photographs that I sent you, Sean, you're seeing blue houses, you're seeing that blue and white Volkswagen bus that's become pretty famous as far as withstanding the fires. It's both blue and white. And we're understanding now that the lasers reflect off of blue and white. That's why there are thousands of blue roofs in China right now, because we have transitioned into a fifth generation warfare where we're using they're using beamed weapon systems on us. And it's very, very important to understand. And I found it interesting, Sean, the PG&E trucks here in Northern California are blue. They've now come up with some new white trucks, but they know the colors they need to be. And I know that there are specific colors of blue that reflect the blue lasers even better. So we need to understand what they told us about the reflection of the blue and the use of lasers and the various patents that we have on this. And I just want to go over a couple of patents right now because we need to. People need to understand this is an attack worldwide. Here's a patent number for you, Sean. It's patent number US 10337841 burn, B as in boy, or burn 2. And it's a United States patent, and it's a world application of 2014. And it was approved and granted on February 7th of 2019, and it expires on March 13th of 2036. Interesting, because they'll have burned and destroyed everything, and that is the plan. But the abstract of this patent is about the use of directed energy weapons. And they say, of course, we know there are devices that direct a beam of high frequency towards a target or targets or a city or a town or a person individually. And they can incapacitate, and they are. And they're destroying all of the targets because literally they can direct these targets, and they're high-speed energy beams, and they're laser beams, and they're causing structural damage to everything they target, including people. So this is what is now the new warfare that we're going to face along with drones, massive increase in drones. We also have to remember that there's another patent, and this is horrific because we're all hearing about the Santa Ana winds or the devil winds that were whipping through Malibu, the Pacific Palisades, and then Altadena, that entire area. And when I grew up in Malibu, I know what they mean by the Santa Ana winds. But what I didn't know when I was only 11 years old when we were burned and had to evacuate is that these winds are created. They're called microburst, and the microburst winds, they're electromagnetic radio weapon crimes, and they're artificially spawned and precision targeted microburst vortex created by scalar electromagnetic weapons systems that are mounted on cell towers everywhere. I hope you heard that. Mounted on cell towers. The U.S. patent is 7629918. And it's presented to us by Raytheon under the operation and command of one of the world's largest defense contractors, Lockheed Martin. And it's very, very important to understand this is a covert homeland military intelligence coup d'etat of social cleansing. And I can't underscore that enough. It's important to understand that the broad spectrum plasma-based electromagnetic weapon described in the U.S. patent, and more recently variations to it, is what is being used to generate the sudden heated high winds and the current firestorms, as well as other firestorms in Western North America. And this is worldwide.
It is.
Described in collaborating documents and patents. These are microburst winds, and there are many patents according to these. But we've just talked about the laser patents, we've talked about the wind patents, and people need to wake up. Sean, we have been talking about this and the types of weapons used here on the fires in Northern California for years.
Yes.
For years.
Yes.
People have not listened. So we need to talk about why aren't they listening?
Well, they're going to. If I may jump in, just give me 1 second. I hear you. We are getting the word out. The alternative truth news media is starting to get the word out. You and I have been getting the word out for more than 10 years, really, at this point, but certainly since the Tubbs fire and then the Maui fire. These fires are similar every single time with the same anomalies. And let me just point out that just a couple of weeks ago, my listeners know my wife and I were in San Diego, and it was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous place. We were 90 minutes from the fires, and people from the fires were coming down to stay in the hotel we were at because they had nowhere else to go. Now San Diego is on fire. And let's just talk about weapons systems and plausible deniability. This attack on humanity, folks, to understand it fully, you need to look at the UN Agenda 2030 maps, the wildlife maps. They want to rewild everything where people live, Pacific Palisades, for instance. How are they ever going to do that? Deb and I have been talking about it for a long time. I used to say to Deb, how in the world are they going to accomplish this? Well, much like a bioweapon masquerading as a vaccine that calls the population, as long as they don't admit it's a bioweapon, they have plausible deniability, don't they? Well, we all woke up to that. Now we know Pfizer is guilty of genocide. I would say that the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and the military-industrial complex, whatever their allies are in this agenda, are also guilty of genocide. And these fires give them plausible deniability, Deb, because the populace does not know. The populace thinks you're a tinfoil hat-wearing nut.
Let me pause you for a moment, because there are ways in which people can become more consciously aware of reality if they would just understand these facts. We can see the attacks being set up. Generally now we're seeing that they cancel insurance. We also now are seeing that they're telling us on radio that it's very hot. We're in a extended drought in areas, and things are very flammable and ignitable. Generally, always, actually, not generally, 3 to 4 days prior to combustion, we're being heavily chemtrailed and or fog. This is a new basting of highly flammable combustible materials so that things will burn. So they'll start the fires with lasers and the microwaves, but the accelerants are part of what advances the flames. We also are now seeing in the Palisades in particular that electric vehicles are exploding, and you don't put those fires out with water. That is accelerating the burn zone and the fires in those areas because people have lithium-ion batteries of all kinds, not only the ones that are in their smart meters, but the ones that they're plugging in for bikes, for the skateboards, for the hoverboards, for the electric vehicles, which should not be anywhere in burn zones. There should be none, zero lithium-ion batteries in burn zones. And what are they flooding us with? Highly combustible weapons.
You want to hear about, hey, get this. You want to check out some serendipity? As you're saying those things, I'm scrolling through Twitter, and all I typed in was California fires. And as you brought up batteries, I came across a tweet about batteries. The worst part about burning lithium batteries is that you can't put them out with water. In fact, lithium reacts violently with water, so the more you add, the more vigorously the fire will burn. You want to talk about serendipity? That's serendipity, my friend.
Absolutely. And I want to go faster into the situation that we all face because we're all highly combustible now. We can be hit with weapon systems and be dustified as human beings. Just as we were seeing many of the communities here in the Tubbs fire here in Northern California where we lost 5,000 homes. And certainly we saw the same consequence in Paradise and in Lahaina fires. It was dustified. Now I'm noticing a different level of intensity in the energy weapons used now in the Palisades and in those areas that are being still on fire, by the way, in Los Angeles County and in San Diego County. They're using a different intensity because we're still seeing chimneys stand. We're still seeing some sinks and various chunks of things that simply did not exist. And you can also go back to 9/11 when they used microwaves and lasers to take down the towers. It was dustified. It was gone. And that's what we've seen, a different intensity now being used in the fires, because had people seen the fires, the attempts of fires, of these types of fires being put out with water, they would have known years back these were microwave fires. But did you know? Did we know back then? No. But we've been now shouting from the rooftop since 2017, because I will tell you, we have large landscape rocks here now, that areas that are being rebuilt that were burned out with electromagnetic frequencies. When they move these or attempt to move these rocks, they crumble. Sean, they crumble because they were hit with microwaves. So I want to get into the NASA War document and what we were told here and weave it back into the attacks and ratchet up our reality as human beings, because we are being consumed and led into a direction where we are not going to be human anymore, as you know. But I want to also tie in the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document that we've talked about for so many years. It's an Air Force technical manual of 1979, and it talks about, and this is a quote from page 36, experience has proven that the simplest method of securing a silent weapon and gaining control of the public is to keep the public undisciplined and ignorant of the basic systems of disengaging their minds, engaging their emotions, rewriting history and law, and exposing the public to deviant creations. Again, this is from Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. Now let's take a look at what we've known for years that has been told to us in the NASA document. You can go to stopthecrime.net and you can type in the NASA document. I have given hundreds and hundreds of talks in deep discussions, hours and hours, about the meaning of the NASA document. But let's just look at some of what was told to us in the NASA document. And again, the NASA document is underpinned by the U.S. Air Force, DARPA, the CIA, the FBI, Southern Command, the Atlantic Command, Australian Department of Defense, and more. So they told us on page 4, when I discovered this so many years ago with a friend of mine in Ohio that is now dead, Thank you very much. But on page 4, that document told us this presentation is based in all cases upon existing data, trends, analysis, technologies. No pixie dust. And the entire document is about robots, cyborgs, and humans. And it's about eliminating humans. They tell us that they will attack our critical infrastructure and take it down on prime time in living color. That's what we're seeing now. They tell us on page 9 of this document, humans have taken over and vastly shortened evolution. They're going to now direct evolution. Sean, what are we seeing? A directed evolution of nano and taking over our bodies and creating something not human. They also told us on page 14, the key future technologies are automatic, robotic, everything, genetic engineering before birth. Also on page 66, we were told, increasingly critical are human limitations and downsides. That humans are too large, we're too heavy, we're too tender, we're too slow, physically and mentally. And we require huge logistic trains. In other words, we have negative to value added. On page 66, that document so long ago revealed that there would be robotics in the large, that they save lives, they enhance affordability, they redefine the risk threats to the environment, and enhances efficiencies. On page 35, examples of confluence of IT, bio, and nanotechnologies, and they talk about the brain of a sea lamprey inserted and connected to the body of a robotic fish. Initial cyborg. That was an initial cyborg. Then they talk about the choo-choo. This is CHEW. The choo-choo, a flesh plant-eating robot that hunts and biodigests natural foods and lives off the land. The choo-choo robot was invented by Stuart Wilkinson, and he expressed concern about the danger of robotics eating humans. Also on page 43, it told us, way before even Morgellons, which is self-replicating nanowires underneath our skin, which we've been showing at conferences for years since we learned that from Clifford Connicom, with a simple light, magnifying a glass and a light. And you can see these luminous wires under your skin. We've had these for years. They've talked about this for years. Now on page 43 of the document, microdust as a weapon. It's a mechanical analog to biomecron-sized mechanized dust, which is distributed as an aerosol and inhaled into the lungs. The dust mechanically bores into our lung tissue, all tissue, and executes various pathological missions. This is a new technology, and it is legal. Now, on page 45, we were told that they would be using beam weapons increasingly prevalent. What are they doing? They're cooking us with beam weapons. People need to understand what they face so they can harden up as best they can to try to survive just a little bit longer.
Sorry for this quick interruption, and a quick word about a sponsor. If you suffer from daily aches and pains, please listen closely. Top medical experts have unveiled a natural pain reliever that's changing the way Americans fight pain. 100% drug-free Canolidine. Canolidine is the only solution in the world that optimizes your body's natural painkillers called endorphins, providing full-body relief without dangerous pills or known side effects. Over 1 million Americans and hundreds of professional athletes, including UFC fighters, have already embraced Canolidine's pain relief power. Best of all, Canolidine is legal worldwide, certified drug-free, and does not cause side effects, grogginess, or addiction. After 14 years of clinical research, it's been proven safe and effective, backed by thousands of successful use cases from other Americans just like you. Best of all, today you can try Canolidine for less than $1 per day. This is your opportunity to finally live pain-free. Click the link below to try the only Canoladine product in the world risk-free for a full 90 days. This private link and special discount expires at midnight tonight. Go to trycano.com/SGT. Experience daily pain relief with Canoladine. You've got nothing to lose but your pain. The link is below.
People need to understand what they face so they can harden up as best they can to try to survive just a little bit longer.
Deb, let me just interject and say that as I've been going through Twitter here, and we've all been listening very closely to you, my audience is very much engaged in this conversation, and we're going to get the word out. I want to back you up here because for those to whom this information is new, and for those who think you might be a little hysterical and you can't possibly be correct about all this, who would be so nefarious? I want to play this clip. We'll play about a minute from a forensic arborist who has determined that nearly all wildfires in California since the Paradise Fires have been caused by direct energy weapons. Deb, audience, listen to this.
The twigs, the needles, the branches, even the trees will burn down, sometimes to a low stump or even a hole in the ground. Not like this one. This was the big Coffee Park fire in Santa Rosa, where 4,700 homes were turned to white ash. And look at the trees. Why aren't they missing along with the houses? Many of these are pine family relatives. Eucalyptus against that road there, or whatever that is, against the road. Those are eucalyptus back there, the round ones. Those are so flammable. A cigarette lighter in your hand can light those on fire. A green leaf, light them right on fire. The forest is primarily valley oak, blue oak, and California bay, which is a very combustible leaf. I can light them on fire again with a cigarette lighter. They didn't burn. There's a bay tree right there. The bottoms will always be burned right at ground level. No reason for that. Grass couldn't do that. It would take a lot of flames to do that. No, they're being cooked right where they're at. This was an entire bay forest, and I couldn't find one leaf burned. And somehow the leaves turned black. You notice the bottoms of these little suckers here, they're black. Almost every tree here is a bay. They didn't burn, but the ground did. It's only a grass fire here. You can tell this was just grass, and it might have even been kept up. I don't see one burned tree. There's ponderosa pine, black oak, white oak. There's a deodar cedar to the left there a little bit. That's pine family from the Himalayas. And a digger pine on the left, the big multi-branched one. Nothing wanted to burn that day, just the house. Ponderosa pine forest. Little short ones and everything. Where the flames are in the needles, they refuse to ignite. Here's your eucalyptus. It's down in the flames, refuse to burn.
You know, I'm going to pause it there, Deb. I know you can't see my screen, but I think this is valuable to the audience. He gets into the exact same stuff you were covering in regards to the lumber posts, the wooden posts that were only burned at the exact place where the screws, the bolts, and the nails were found. Listen to this.
Here's a fence line. They all look like this. Burn at the nails, burn at the ground. The only place they burn is at the ground and wherever the metals were. What fire does that? A normal fire would burn the post from the bottom up, not skip spots. No, they favor the metals, of course. This is a tall post, perhaps 5 or 6 feet high, and way up high, eye level, just the nail area burned. Here's this board. What really burned? The nails on that board.
The nails on the board. Deb, I'm turning it back over to you. These are signatures of directed energy weapons. This is evidence of genocide and fires that were designed to get people off their land.
Deb? What you just played, because I actually know Robert very well. And it's important to understand, with the understanding that the trees did not burn, it's because the weapons are calibrated. There are signatures of where they can cause the lasers and the microwaves to go. But the trees are not untouched, and they are not okay. Everything has been absolutely destroyed as far as plants and trees go by the many decades of heavy aluminum, strontium, and barium that has been dropped. We have had arborists that have worked on a state level telling us that the shrubs, the trees are dying worldwide. And this is important. They may look green, but that's because the lasers can be calibrated, and they are. So I would certainly understand that fact predominantly here in that conversation. But I also want to continue because on page 50 of the document, it talks about the effects of low-powered microwaves and that they know that it will cause seizures, gross alterations in our brain function, and death. And on page 55, it talks about all the things that are legal to use on us, which is why it is being used on us in this horrific legal environment of death and destruction. It's legal to use microwave and radio frequencies against our brains. It's a weapon. It's legal to use chemical weapons on us, which is being done. It's also legal to psychologically affect our brains, and we're under a mass psychological warfare, psy-war, right now, which is increasing collateral damage and exploiting all of us. It is also legal to use hostage as terrorism. We're watching that. This is all part of the game. This is a game strategy, all told to us in advance. We know this now in advance. The psy-war is legal. Acoustic weaponry is legal. Acoustic weaponry, we could talk about that a bit because that's being used worldwide on many people. But then also we have mechanical micro dust. So I want to go into why this is happening, and I want to underscore the fact that that what we are experiencing is now how they're going to drive us into the fourth industrial revolution, where everything is going to be virtual and digitized, and we will all become robotic and or cyborgs. It's very important to understand that we will no longer be biological humans anymore, and that the brain-computer interfacing has patents. We're going to go over that. And it's all triggered. Majority of it will be triggered by 5G and electromagnetic frequencies from the cell phone towers and the weapons you hold in your hand called cell phones, as well as all the wireless in your homes, including smart meters and anything else wireless, the Wi-Fi and everything else. We have to understand that everything is being triggered by electromagnetic frequencies to digitize every cell on Earth, and every animal, all living things. And how do we get to where we're going? We're going to talk about that, and we have been talking about that. They're burning us out of house and home. Certainly we don't need water as we would be able to have gotten years back had we gotten to primary water and utilized that. But no, robots don't need water. But let's talk about this as well, because this is critical. We're going to talk about acoustic weapons, and we're going to talk about mind control weapons. And these are psychoacoustic projectors, and it's a U.S. patent 3566347, and this was back in 1971. A device weapon which can actually deafen the target. It's a silent subliminal message, and this is another patent of October 1992, where they use carriers in extreme audio frequency ranges and are amplified or modulated with the desired material and promulgated acoustically for direct inducement into our brains. This is an excellent method of influencing people without their knowledge and is used in advertising. I want to say this, Sean, I was talking to somebody here because I am I'm very traumatized over the fires in Los Angeles because they're burning everywhere I lived and grew up out. And I mentioned to somebody just in passing that I was very concerned about the LA fires. And they told me, oh, well, the good news is they caught the arsonist. So that is what people are going to be told. They've arrested and caught the arsonist. That is to deflect from the use of microwaves. Now, I'm not saying that they're not using drones, microwaves from satellites, and boots on the ground, triggered mind-controlled arsonists, and people that they're simply paying. All of that is being done. But it's important to understand the arsonist is the government. That is the arsonist. And we have to understand what has been done and the kinds of patents that have been used against us and why we're not able to understand or even think beyond the targeting of frequencies, because we know that there are patents for the use of mind control and the use of frequencies. And I'm going to go over this electromagnetic satellite technology, And this is a patent that was introduced in 1968. And it's a device that converts sound to electrical impulses, and it's sometimes called the voice of God. Now, this was used during the Iraq War. You can look that up. And it makes the person think he is crazy. When the signals are sent to the brain, it makes a person think that God is speaking to him or her, even an alien. It targets the unique bioelectrical resonance frequency using vibrational patterns in the brain called a signature, and it acts like an audio receiver. Now, it's important to understand that they now can literally transcribe the energy electrical frequencies in your brain, create an auditory or create what you're thinking in your brain into being able to read what you're thinking before you verbalize your thoughts. And this is now the whole basis of pre-crime. This is what we're seeing now with Peter Thiel, with Palantir, I should say. Palantir working right now with the current administration on pre-crime. They are deploying these pre-crime weapon systems throughout the United States by the thousands every day. And you can look this up. And maybe, Sean, you'd like to insert this so that people can see this link for themselves. This deployment is called SUN, S-U-N, surveillance. Now, I've already been looking at this. They've deployed one nearby, and they come up with the ways in which and the reasons they're deploying it is when there's a flood, they can divert traffic to a passable road system. That's not true. They're creating the floods. Remember, they control the weather. They could also have put some of the fires out because they can make it rain. We know that in the Vietnam War, they used Operation Popeye. They flooded out the Ho Chi Minh supply line, killing over 1 million Vietnamese. And they could put some of these fires out, but are they? No, they're burning us out. This is what is happening. And it's most important to understand what has happened. Why has this happened? Why are so few people hearing the calls from us in Northern California trying to warn them in advance of what is happening? They're not able to hear. And why aren't they able to hear? On stopthecrime.net, if you type in Aquarius, Aquarius, it is a document that I received from a whistleblower years back. I've talked about it many, many times. And this is discussing the planned chemical sedation of the population by the use of radio wave frequencies for mass mind control. To obviously convert us into robots, there has to be a controlling factor here. And it is the control of this. And so what it tells us on page 1 of this Aquarius briefing is that they use electromagnetic radio waves, and microwave pulse mind warfare has great advantages in that a desired subject or population has no knowledge of the procedure being implemented on them. On page 2, it tells us mind control, chemical, and polypharmaceutical saturation has long since been achieved. This is over 30 years ago. This saturation was achieved, implementation with the purpose in mind control and achieved by deliberate, overt introduction through exposure or consumption on behalf of the population base in everyday usage of public water supplies, airborne pollutants, and chemical agents in a wide variety of foodstuffs. We are being poisoned. We are a poisoned prison planet, soon to be geofenced by AI and the sun surveillance systems. Now, I've asked a friend of mine in Wales to look up the sun surveillance systems being deployed right here in the United States to see what kinds of systems and who's doing that in the UK and in Europe. I don't know what that is yet, but I can tell you, all of you need to start understanding you are going to be controlled by AI, period. And the takeover and transition of humans into cyborgs and robots is occurring now. And we have to understand that. This is the enormity of what we face. And we can literally, as I said earlier in this discussion, Sean, we can be zapped by frequencies and dustified because of the heavy metals.
Yep. Well, in the short time we have left, Deb, I just want to interject again. I'm on Twitter, and we're seeing a video shot from Simi Valley, California, ironically up here by Freedom and Liberty Way, says the video poster, with the skies completely blanketed at 8:30 in the morning by chemtrails as far as the eye can see, dimming out the sun by 8:30 in the morning as far as the eye can see. Prepping, I would say, the environment for more of what y'all have been seeing in California, Deb.
Well, I sent you a photograph of a YouTuber in the fire zone that was updating people as to what she was observing in the skies. Now, she was unaware, as she had the camera focused on her and she was talking about other things, that behind her you could see chemtrails over the fire zones, active burn zones in the Palisades area. So, Sean, I sent that to you. Please show that, because people need to understand they're killing us even during the fires. But again, I can't underscore enough. People need to become consciously aware of what it's going to look like before an attack. There are many things that you will observe if you become more consciously aware of reality. That is the heavy chemtrailing, or the fog, which is coating a new layer of high combustibility. Although it's combustible, it will allow it to combust and ignite more rapidly. So the heavy chemtrailing, basing us with increased combustible solutions, I guess, changing all the time, I'm sure. But then a severe drop in humidity. Generally, it's 50% or lower. I was observing the humidity down in the burn zones in Los Angeles, and they were around 12%. That is unheard of. That is unheard of. So when the humidity is dropped, there's heavy chemtrailing. They're telling you that it's very, very hot, that the fuels are dry. They're telling you they're getting ready to burn, and then they create the winds, and they burn you. Now, are there things people could have done? Because we are on our own. The idea that your local government is concerned about a reservoir being full or not is certainly, obviously, not the case. We are being intentionally burned. So for those that can, you can, in some instances, get topside water tanks and get them filled with water. Get submersible pumps. Get fire hoses and start using your water that you maintain on your property for dousing down your houses when these conditions are certainly shown you, the ones I just described. That's what many people are doing now. We're on our own. It's up to us. You have to have topside water, and you have to try to be able to put out some of these electronic flurries of embers, but they are, in many instances, electronic, and they don't go out. But you can use spot water and get out the embers. And I would recommend that people start getting the proper clothes to be outside on their properties in the fire. You need to have similar clothing that firefighters have, but be aware. The clothing that the poor firefighters have has PFAS in it, PFAS, and firefighters have high levels of PFAS in their blood. The firefighters, sadly, are doing a gallant job on attempting to put out fires that they don't realize are microwave fires. And several of the retired fire captains that have gone on criminal crime scene with us to look at these aftermaths are so sad, because they know that the job of the firefighters is tough at best, but when you're not equipped with equipment to put out these electromagnetic laser microwave fires that are exacerbated by lithium-ion batteries and people's lithium-ion explosive cars in their garages, they can't fight these fires. So you're on your own. And if you're going to choose to have lithium-ion batteries anywhere on your property, you can just figure that you're going to get thermal runaways, and you're going to blow up in like bombs all over that are going to extend the burn of the fires. Now, I want to say this. This is synthetic telepathy, and it is remote neuromonitoring using 5G and satellite harassments. And here's the patent. It's U.S. Patent 3951134A, and it's dated 1976. And there are 24 patents about neurological warfare. That's what we're in. That's why people cannot hear those of us that have warned them for years about these fires, and they're just absolutely being slaughtered. So let's talk about this. This is synthetic telepathy and remote neuro monitoring. It's a functional neural imaging capable of extracting EEG data from the human brain at a distance with no physical contact. And the NSA has the capability and has been decoding this data to extract sub-vocalizations, visual and auditory data from our brains, whomever they decide to target and extract this information. Now it will be AI, and it will be massively extracted through Palantir, but it allows access to a person's thoughts without their knowledge or permission, and it collects massive amounts of personal data from the population and allows them to feed back this information into quantum computers, which produce schematics for understanding the collective consciousness. So predictive types of programming are designed to influence and modify human behavior. And the sooner all of you realize that this is true, the better off you will be to protect yourselves from 5G, which is a neurological network. Now, I already talked about the fires and the use of weapons to induce
Deb, while you're thinking about that, I just want people to really, really, really take in. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, the video you're seeing right here, folks, of people's homes being absolutely turned into infernos, well, it's a novel. And what you're hearing from Deb Tavares is historical fact, data from a real journalist, a boots-on-the-ground activist who's been at this for decades. And folks, let me just say, if this sounds like a science fiction film that Deb is describing, well, you're right, and you're living in it. You are living through a science fiction film, and most people are sleepwalking through it.
And sadly, the goal of this information is for people to not be slaughtered without knowing the train is coming. And if there would be anything I could hope, it would be, as this continues to accelerate, and it is, we're going to have many types of additional weather weapons used. We saw what Helene did with devastating, causing landslides. Landslides are now already occurring in Malibu in the burn zones. That's a typical methodology of the weapons being used. They burn us out, then they flood us out, causing landslides, of which directed energy weapons are used also to cause the landslides. And I've said this before, and this is very, very important, Sean. People ask me all the time, where do we go to be safe? Well, I can tell you where you don't go. You do not live on the coast, because the coast is being eroded by weapon systems. And you do not live below grade of a wastewater treatment plant, because those are being swamped in atmospheric rivers with high levels of poisonous excrement in that, as well as pharmaceuticals of undetermined poisons and toxins. You do not want to live below a dam or a reservoir. In many areas, you might think it's a lake. They call them lakes. You need to actually find out if they're reservoirs, because generally they are. They literally have put in reservoirs to be able to build cities so that they can have the water they need, which is what we're seeing in the Palisades. Now, I know of someone that worked for the LA Department of Water and Power and worked on that San Ynez Reservoir, putting in some of the pumps. That the reservoir was found to now be dry. So I can only tell you where you shouldn't be. You shouldn't live near rivers or streams, because they can back those up and increase the floodplains, like we have seen worldwide. Worldwide, we're seeing people flooded out because they have the capability of reversing the flow of water. Now, I know that sounds as insane as everything else that was discussed on this disclosure during this informational blowout here, Sean, but that is all true. And I've discussed this many years over and through many documents that tell us this. So for folks, you just need, if at all possible, to be in areas that will not be hit because of additional targeting capabilities. And again, draw the line in the sand. Live each day in right conduct. Always decide to do the next best right thing, because we are literally going into a time of massive on the street confusion and lots of psychological misbehaving. And I don't mean misbehaving, I mean dangerous behaviors are now starting because of the ability to control people's minds and make them crazy. So, Sean, thank you so much.
Well, it's my pleasure, Deb. And I just want folks to realize, if you're listening to this, the reason we dedicated an entire show to it is because most people in America don't speak the language. They're not equipped with the knowledge, so they can't have the conversation. It's our job to at least inform the people so that the conversations can begin at the city council level, holding these mayors accountable, holding these governors accountable. These fires in California have been going on now for nearly a month. And Gavin Newsom, House of Getty, is in the pocket of Rothschild and Rockefeller, as so many governors and mayors are. Deb, I'll give you the final word. Tell us about stopthecrime.net as well.
Your city council, your county board of supervisors, your school boards, they're all agencies controlled by Rothschild. You will have no ability to change the automatic autopilot program that we are on. We have spent thousands and thousands of hours at meetings over many years, public meetings on every level, including Pacific Gas and Electric, the plan to centralize Northern California, local city council meetings. In fact, I was at a city council meeting here in Sonoma County back in 2015. You can find this on YouTube. I presented them with the plans that I had gotten from a number of pieces of information I put together from fire captains. And that was called the Plan to Burn Up Northern California. Did they listen to me? Absolutely not. You'll see me 3 minutes with my husband recording me, giving them and telling them about this information. They did nothing because they are part of the system, whether they're mind controlled or whether they're paid off and believing that they're going to have a better life as they destroy all of our lives. So I can tell you, go to the meetings if you want, but I am seeing vast levels of frustration as a result of not being listened to, because you're given 3 minutes, sometimes 2 minutes to talk, sometimes 1 minute. And if you talk sometimes even a sentence beyond your allotted time, they threaten you with arrest. That is not a meeting that is going to provide the outcome of a change. Absolutely not. These are all planned, pre-planned meetings in the RAND Corporation. These are called DELPHI, DELPHI meetings. These were invented in the UK and brought to the United States through the RAND Corporation. So I leave it there, Sean. We are on our own. We have to live in right conduct. We have to do all we can to individually be prepared so that we can help others, because we are in a mass slaughter event.
A mass slaughter event may be the title of this video. I haven't decided yet, but our guest has been Deb Tavares, one of the hardest working women on behalf of America and Americans that you will ever meet. Her website, stopthecrime.net. Now, how we stop these crimes, guys, I'm not exactly sure at this point. I guess it's incumbent on everybody listening to get off their couches and get engaged, because what you see going on in California, it's coming to a neighborhood near you, I assure you, if this isn't stopped. Our guest has been Deb Tavares. Deb, thank you once again for all you do. We planned on 25, 30 minutes today. Here we're an hour deep. Thank you so much.
Good Lord Almighty.
We're good. Thank you so much, Deb.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sean.
It's my pleasure. Guys,
I didn't cover a critical piece of information. Very critical. So maybe in a week or so, I can do a 15-minute on that one.
Oh, I would love that. Guys, we will get Deb on as soon as she's ready to do it again. She is a reservoir of knowledge, and we need to share it with everybody. Spread this information far and wide within your sphere of influence on social media. And guys, if you're still with us, thank you so much. Check us out every single day for free to get the real news. This is stuff you're not going to hear on CNN. You're not going to hear it on Fox News either, I assure you. Check us out every single day at sgtreport.com. And until next time, may God the Creator continue to bless you and fill you with courage of the Holy Spirit to take action. God bless, guys. Bye-bye.
Yesterday, I had no clue he was going to effectively outlaw central bank digital currency in the United States of America. It was like, holy smokes, you gotta be kidding me. Even better, I've got to tell you, out of all of these that he did, he effectively stopped the OECD, who was already and firmly entrenched as the one world regulator in our government. I had no idea they even have offices in Atlanta, but they are the one world regulator, the one world government. And he just said, no, we're not doing your thing anymore, which means that he's fighting for our sovereignty. He's not going along with the program. And that goes along with the central bank digital currency. It's almost a libertarian